The banker's notice lay crumpled in Florence Foster's trembling hand as she stood on the porch of what used to be her farmhouse, watching the April sun sink behind the Wyoming hills like hope bleeding out of the sky. "Madam, I am truly sorry, but the bank needs you gone by sundown tomorrow," the young clerk had said that morning, his eyes unable to meet hers. "The debt your late husband accumulated, well, it exceeds the value of the property 3 times over." Florence had wanted to scream that Thomas had been dead only 8 months, that he had died trying to keep this 160 acres of stubborn Wyoming soil productive during the worst drought anyone could remember. She wanted to explain that she had worked herself to exhaustion trying to maintain what he had built, that her hands were raw and bleeding from dawn until dusk every single day. But pride kept her mouth shut. Pride and the knowledge that the banker would not care either way. Now, as the shadows lengthened across the dry fields, Florence walked through the small house she had shared with Thomas for 3 years of marriage. She had been 19 when they wed in 1881, fresh off the wagon from Pennsylvania with dreams of a new life in the West. Thomas had been kind, decent, 20 years her senior but gentle in ways that mattered. He had promised her security and a future. Then the drought came, followed by his heart giving out while trying to dig a new well in the blazing summer heat of 1884. She had found him collapsed in the dirt, 47 years old and gone before the doctor could even arrive from town. At 22, Florence was a widow with no family, no money, and by tomorrow evening, no home. She packed what little she could carry into 2 canvas bags. Her wedding dress, carefully folded, the daguerreotype of her parents, Thomas's pocket watch that had stopped the moment he died, forever frozen at 3:42, a few changes of clothes, the Bible her mother had given her. Everything else would stay, claimed by the bank along with the land and the house, and the broken-down barn where their hopes had died along with the livestock they could no longer afford to feed. Florence did not cry. She had used up all her tears in the month since Thomas's death, spent them in the dark nights when the wind howled around the farmhouse, and she felt so utterly alone that she wondered if she might simply disappear into the emptiness. Now she felt hollow, scraped clean of emotion, just going through the motions because stopping meant giving up entirely. She slept fitfully that night, her last in the house. When dawn broke pale and uncertain through the single window, she rose, dressed in her most practical traveling clothes, a simple brown dress with a sturdy wool shawl, and made herself coffee from the last of her supplies. She drank it slowly, savoring the bitter warmth, wondering where she would find her next cup. The thought was absurd enough that she almost laughed. Almost. By mid-morning, Florence stood on the porch with her 2 bags, watching the road. The banker would send someone to ensure she left. She would not give them the satisfaction of forcing her out. She would walk away with what dignity remained to her. The sound of hoofbeats made her turn. A rider approached from the direction of town, but as he drew closer, she realized it was not the banker's clerk. This man sat tall in the saddle, his hat pulled low against the morning sun, his horse a beautiful paint that moved with the easy grace of an animal well cared for. He slowed as he approached the house, then stopped entirely, looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. "Morning, madam," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I heard you might be leaving today." Florence studied him. He was younger than Thomas had been, perhaps 27 or 28, with dark hair visible beneath his hat and eyes the color of river stones. His face was weathered from sun and wind but handsome in a rough way. His clothes were worn but clean, his boots good quality though scuffed from use. A working man, she judged, but one who took pride in himself. "News travels fast," she said, her voice flat. In towns like Unionville, everything travels fast except rain, he replied. There was no mockery in his tone, just statement of fact. Name is Nathan Quincy. I have a ranch about 8 miles west of here. Small operation, just me and a couple of hands. Florence waited. She had learned that men in the West often took their time getting to the point. Nathan swung down from his horse, holding the reins loosely. He was tall, she noticed, and moved with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. I heard about your situation. The bank taking the farm, I mean. Heard about your husband too. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you, Florence said automatically. She had heard those words so many times they had lost all meaning. Nathan looked out across the dry fields, then back at her. I will be direct, Mrs. Foster, because I suspect you do not have time for anything else. I know what it is like to lose everything. 5 years ago, I watched my family's ranch in Kansas get taken by men with more money and fewer scruples. Took me years of hard work to scrape together enough to start over out here. I built something decent, but it is lonely work. The kind of lonely that makes a man realize money and land do not mean much if there is no one to share them with. Florence felt something stir beneath her numbness. Suspicion, maybe, or just wariness. Mr. Quincy, if you are about to make an improper suggestion, I should tell you that I may be destitute, but I am not desperate enough for that. To her surprise, he laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. No, madam, nothing improper. Though I suppose my actual proposal might sound strange enough on its own. He met her eyes directly. I have a ranch. It is mine, free and clear, paid for with 5 years of breaking my back, but paid for nonetheless. Good water, decent grazing, a house that is small but solid. I would like to give it to you. Florence stared at him. You would like to what? Give it to you. Sign over the deed, make it legally yours. All I ask in return is your company. My company, Florence repeated slowly. Nathan nodded. I am not proposing marriage, not right away at least. I know that would be presumptuous. You have been through enough without some stranger trying to rush you into something you are not ready for. But I would like the chance to know you, and for you to know me. I would like to share meals and conversation. I would like to not feel so damned alone anymore, pardon my language. If over time you came to care for me, well, I would count myself the luckiest man in Wyoming. If not, the ranch is still yours. You would have security either way. Florence's mind reeled. This is insane. You do not even know me. True enough, Nathan admitted. But I know you worked yourself near to death trying to save this place after your husband passed. I know you did not give up even when giving up would have been easier. I know you are still standing here with your head high even though everything has been taken from you. That tells me more about your character than 100 formal introductions. How do you know any of that? Florence asked, her suspicion growing. Unionville is a small town, Mrs. Foster. People talk. My ranch hand, Charlie, his sister works at the general store. She mentioned how you kept coming in, buying just enough supplies to get by, never complaining, always polite even when it was clear you were struggling. Doc Peterson mentioned you to me last month when I was in for treatment on a broke finger. Said he had never seen someone work as hard as you did to keep a dying farm alive. Said it was a shame there was no one to help you. So you decided to play the hero. There was bitterness in her voice now. Nathan shook his head. No, madam. I decided to take a chance on something that might make 2 lonely people a little less lonely. That is all this is. A chance. Florence looked at her bags sitting on the porch, then at the house behind her, then at this strange man with his strange offer. Why would you give away your ranch? That makes no sense. I am not giving it away. I am investing it in something that matters more than land. I am investing it in the possibility of a life that means something. Nathan took a step closer but maintained a respectful distance. Mrs. Foster Florence, if I may, you are facing a hard road. You have no family here, no resources. The best you can hope for is finding work as a domestic in someone's house, and even that would be uncertain. I am offering you security and safety. I am offering you a home. The only thing I want in return is the chance to talk with you, to sit across from you at meals, to maybe help each other not feel so alone in this big, empty country. Florence wanted to refuse. Pride demanded it, but pride could not keep her warm or fed. Pride would not put a roof over her head when winter came. She studied Nathan's face, looking for signs of deception or ulterior motives, but all she saw was a kind of desperate honesty that mirrored her own desperate situation. "If I agreed to this, I would want terms clear," she said slowly. "I would want my own room. I would want the right to leave if I felt unsafe or uncomfortable." "Agreed completely," Nathan said immediately. "The house has 2 bedrooms. One is yours for as long as you need it, whether that is a week or forever. And you can leave any time you want, though I hope you will give me a fair chance to prove I am worth staying for." "This is the maddest thing I have ever heard," Florence said, but she could feel something in her chest loosening, some tight knot of fear beginning to unwind. "The whole West is mad when you think about it," Nathan replied with a slight smile. "People traveling thousands of miles to start over in a place that actively tries to kill them. Might as well add one more mad thing to the list." Florence closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff into darkness. All right, Mr. Quincy, I will accept your offer. God help us both, but I will accept it." Nathan's smile broadened into something that transformed his whole face, lighting up his eyes with genuine joy. "You will not regret this, Florence. I swear to you, you will not regret this." "I regret it already," she muttered, but there was no real heat in the words. "When do we leave?" "Right now, if you are ready. I have a wagon waiting just down the road. Did not want to presume by bringing it up to the house, but I had hoped you might agree." Despite everything, Florence felt a small laugh escape her. "You were that confident, not confident. Hopeful. There is a difference." Nathan brought the wagon up, a sturdy vehicle pulled by 2 healthy horses. He loaded her bags with careful hands, then helped her up onto the seat. As they pulled away from the farmhouse, Florence looked back once at the place where she had tried to build a life with Thomas. Then she turned forward, facing the unknown road ahead. They rode in silence for the first mile. The Wyoming landscape spread around them in rolling hills covered with sage and buffalo grass. The sky stretched vast and blue overhead, marked with a few scattered clouds. It was beautiful in its stark way, this high plains country where life had to fight for every inch. Finally, Nathan spoke. "I should tell you more about the ranch, so you know what you are coming to. Like I said, it is small. About 400 acres, most of it decent grazing land. I run about 200 head of cattle, mix of longhorns and Herefords. Got chickens, a milk cow, a small vegetable garden that I am terrible at maintaining. The house is 1 story, wood frame, nothing fancy, but it is tight and warm. Charlie and his brother Jasper work for me. They are good men, respectful, been with me for 3 years. They bunk in the smaller cabin about a quarter mile from the main house, so they are close enough to help but far enough for privacy." "How old are Charlie and Jasper?" Florence asked, grasping for practical details to keep her mind from spinning. "Charlie is 30, Jasper is 26. Both of them are quiet types, hard workers. You will be safe around them, I guarantee that." Florence nodded. Safe. What a concept that had become. She had not felt truly safe since Thomas died, maybe not even before then. The West was not a place that offered much in the way of safety, especially not to women alone. "What about you?" she asked after another silence. "Tell me about yourself." Nathan considered for a moment. Not much to tell that is exciting. I am 27 years old, grew up in Kansas like I mentioned. My father had a ranch there, medium-sized, ran horses mostly, beautiful animals. I loved that work. But when I was 22, a railroad company decided they wanted the land our ranch sat on. Had lawyers and judges in their pocket. My father fought them for months, but in the end they took it all. Father died 6 months later. My mother had passed years before when I was a boy. No siblings. So I took what little money I could salvage and came west to Wyoming Territory, determined to build something that no one could take from me. I am sorry, Florence said softly. About your father. Thank you, it was hard. Still is sometimes. I think that is why I could not let your situation pass without trying to help. I remember what it felt like to lose everything. They rode on through the afternoon. Nathan pointed out landmarks as they went. The creek where he got water for the ranch, always flowing even in dry years because it was fed by springs. The North Ridge where antelope liked to gather. The stand of cottonwoods that marked the edge of his property. The ranch came into view as the sun began its descent toward evening. Florence felt her breath catch slightly. It was not grand, but it was substantial. The house sat nestled against a low hill, sheltered from the worst winds. Painted white, it looked clean and well-maintained. The barn was large and in good repair. Corrals spread out to one side, containing several horses. She could see cattle grazing in the distance. "It is lovely," she said, and meant it. Nathan's expression showed his pleasure at her words. "Wait until you see the inside. I am no housekeeper, I will warn you now, but it is clean enough." He pulled the wagon up to the house and helped her down. Her legs felt stiff from the ride. Nathan grabbed her bags and led her up onto the porch. The door was not locked. He pushed it open and gestured for her to enter first. The interior was simple but comfortable. A main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace on one wall, a table with 4 chairs, and a kitchen area with a good stove. 2 doors led off the main room. "Bedrooms," Nathan said, pointing. "The one on the right is larger. That is yours. Left one is mine. There is a pump outside for water, and the privy is behind the house. Not fancy, but functional." Florence walked slowly into the main room, touching the back of one of the chairs, looking at the curtains on the windows. "You have curtains." "My mother made them before she died," Nathan said quietly. "I brought them west with me, could not bear to leave them behind." Florence looked at him with new understanding. This man who had offered her everything was not some unfeeling stranger. He carried his own grief, his own losses. "The bedroom," Nathan prompted gently. "You should see it." Florence opened the door on the right and stepped into a room that was simple but adequate. A bed with a real mattress, not just a corn-shuck one. A bureau with a mirror. A window looking out toward the eastern hills. A quilt on the bed in a wedding ring pattern, beautifully made. "That was my mother's too," Nathan said from the doorway. "I want you to have it." Florence ran her hand over the quilt, feeling the careful stitches. "This is too much. These are your memories." "Memories do not keep you warm at night. That quilt should be used by someone who needs it." Nathan shifted his weight. "I will let you settle in. I need to check on the stock before full dark. Make yourself at home. There is food in the pantry, help yourself to anything. I will be back in about an hour." He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Florence stood in the center of the room and, for the first time since Thomas died, felt something like relief wash over her. She unpacked her few belongings, putting them carefully in the bureau. Her wedding dress she hung on a peg on the wall. The daguerreotype of her parents she placed on top of the bureau where she could see it. Then she went out into the main room and explored. The pantry Nathan had mentioned was well stocked. Flour, beans, coffee, sugar, salt, dried meat, canned goods. More food than she had seen in months. She found herself trembling at the abundance of it. Florence made coffee and stood by the window, watching the last of the daylight fade. She saw Nathan in the distance, moving among the horses in the corral, his movements efficient and sure. He was a capable man, that much was clear, and he had been true to his word so far. He had given her privacy, space, respect. When Nathan returned, full darkness had fallen. Florence had lit the lamps and was sitting at the table with her coffee. He came in quietly, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. "Everything looks good out there," he reported. "Charlie and Jasper will be by in the morning. I told them we had a guest, so they will not be surprised to see you." "What exactly did you tell them?" Florence asked. Nathan poured himself coffee and sat across from her. "The truth. That you had lost your farm and I offered you a place to stay. That you would be managing the household in exchange for room and board. They do not need to know the details beyond that." "Managing the household," Florence repeated. "If you want to. No pressure. But I thought it might give things a sense of propriety, make the situation seem less strange to anyone who asks questions." Florence considered that. "All right, that makes sense." They sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee. It was not an uncomfortable silence, Florence realized. Just two people too tired for conversation. Finally, Nathan stood. "I should let you rest. I am sure you are exhausted. If you need anything during the night, just knock on my door. I am a light sleeper." "Thank you," Florence said. "For all of this." Nathan met her eyes, his expression serious. "You do not need to thank me. This is as much for me as it is for you." That night, lying in the unfamiliar bed under the wedding ring quilt, Florence stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened. This morning she had been facing destitution. Now she was lying in a comfortable bed in a solid house on a working ranch, all because a stranger had decided to take a chance on her. It was too much. It made no sense, and yet here she was. Sleep came eventually, deep and dreamless in a way it had not been for months. Florence woke to morning light streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. She dressed quickly and emerged from her room to find Nathan already up, working at the stove. "Morning," he said with a smile. "Hope you do not mind, but I started breakfast. Figured you might be hungry." Florence watched as he worked, cracking eggs into a pan, slicing bread. "You cook?" "Have to when you live alone. Not fancy, but edible." He glanced at her. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "Good. That is real good." They ate breakfast together, and Florence found herself relaxing slightly. Nathan was easy to be around, not demanding or overbearing. He talked about the work that needed doing on the ranch, asked her opinion on things related to the house. He treated her like a partner, not a servant or a burden. After breakfast, Nathan introduced her to Charlie and Jasper. Both men were polite, tipping their hats and greeting her with quiet respect. Charlie was stocky and bearded with kind eyes. Jasper was tall and thin, more reserved. They asked no awkward questions, just welcomed her and went about their work. The days began to take on a rhythm. Florence did take over the household management, finding satisfaction in the work. She cooked meals, tended the vegetable garden, gathered eggs from the chickens, kept the house clean. But it was different from the desperate labor on her failing farm. Here, there were resources. Here, she was not fighting a losing battle against drought and debt. Nathan worked the ranch from dawn until dusk, but he always made time to eat meals with her, to talk in the evenings. He asked about her life, her childhood in Pennsylvania, her parents. She learned more about him too. His love of horses, his dream of eventually breeding them, his desire to build something lasting. A week passed, then two. Florence found herself settling in, feeling less like a guest and more like someone who belonged. She also found herself watching Nathan more than she probably should. The way he moved with such easy confidence. The way he was always patient with the animals. The way he treated everyone with respect, from her to his ranch hands to the merchants in town. 3 weeks after her arrival, Nathan suggested they go into Unionville together for supplies. Florence agreed, though she felt nervous about facing the townspeople. What would they think of her living on Nathan's ranch? But the trip went smoothly. If people had opinions, they kept them mostly to themselves. The clerk at the general store greeted her warmly, expressing happiness that she had found a safe situation. The banker looked slightly annoyed but said nothing. Nathan stayed close to her side the whole time, a quiet, protective presence. On the ride back, Nathan said, "That was not so bad, was it?" "No," Florence admitted, "though I am sure there will be talk." "Let them talk. Anyone who matters will not judge you." Florence looked at him. "Why are you so good to me, Nathan? Really? There has to be more to this than loneliness." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "You want the truth?" "Please." "I saw you once, about 6 months ago. I had business in town and I passed your farm on the way. You were out in the field, working in the blazing sun, wearing yourself out on that stubborn land. Something about the sight of you, so determined and strong, it stuck with me. Then I heard about your husband passing, and I watched from a distance as you kept fighting to hold onto that farm. I developed a deep respect for you, Florence. Admiration, even. When I heard the bank was taking your place, I knew I had to at least try to help. And yes, part of it was selfish. I thought maybe, just maybe, you might be someone I could build a life with, someone strong enough for this country, someone who understands loss and keeps going anyway." Florence felt her heart beating faster. "That is quite a confession. You asked for the truth." "I did." She looked out at the passing landscape. "I will be honest too, then. I was not certain about any of this at first. It seemed too good to be true, and my experience has been that things that seem too good to be true usually are. But you have been nothing but honorable. You have given me space and respect, and I find myself thinking about you more than I probably should." Now it was Nathan's turn to look surprised. "You do." "I do. I am not ready for anything more than what we have right now, but I thought you should know that I am not unaffected by you." A slow smile spread across Nathan's face. "That is the best thing I have heard in a very long time." They rode the rest of the way in a comfortable silence that felt charged with new understanding. As spring turned to early summer, Florence and Nathan grew closer. They took walks in the evening after the day's work was done, talking about everything and nothing. He showed her his favorite spots on the ranch, the places where wildflowers bloomed, where you could see for miles. She told him stories about her childhood, about her dreams before the harsh realities of frontier life had worn them down. One evening in late June, they stood on a hill watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Nathan reached out and took her hand. Florence led him, intertwining her fingers with his. "Florence," he said quietly, "I know it has only been a couple of months, I know that is not long, but I need you to know that my feelings for you have grown far beyond what I expected. You have brought life back to this ranch to me. These past weeks with you have been the happiest I can remember." Florence looked at their joined hands. "I feel it too. It scares me a little how quickly this has happened. I did not think I would ever feel this way about anyone after Thomas. Thomas was a good man by all accounts. I am not trying to replace him. I know. And that is part of what makes you so easy to care for. You have never tried to push me or rush me. You have just been yourself, and that has been more than enough." Nathan turned to face her fully, using his free hand to gently cup her cheek. "May I kiss you?" Florence's breath caught, but she nodded. "Yes." The kiss was soft and gentle, a question more than a demand. Florence felt warmth spread through her chest, different from what she had felt with Thomas but no less real. When they pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I am falling in love with you," he whispered. "I probably should not say it this soon, but it is the truth." "I am falling in love with you too," Florence admitted. "It terrifies me, but it is the truth." "We will take it slow," Nathan promised. "As slow as you need." But slow became difficult when every day brought them closer together. Florence found herself seeking him out, wanting to be near him. Their evening talks grew longer, stretching late into the night. Nathan would reach for her hand and she would let him, would lean against his shoulder, would let herself feel safe in his presence. In July, a fierce summer storm rolled through, the kind that turned the sky black and shook the house with thunder. Florence stood at the window watching lightning split the sky, memories of the drought that had killed her first farm making her anxious despite the blessing of rain. Nathan came to stand behind her, close but not touching. "You are worried." "Old habits." "I spent so long praying for rain and being disappointed. Now it is here and I am remembering all the times it was not. This is different. This land can handle rain, and you are safe here." Florence turned to look at him. In the lamplight, his face was all strong lines and shadows. Without thinking too much about it, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Nathan held her tight, one hand stroking her hair. "I am here," he murmured. "You are not alone anymore." "Neither are you," she replied. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other while the storm raged outside. When the thunder finally moved off to the east, Nathan tilted her face up and kissed her with more passion than before. Florence responded in kind, months of growing feeling pouring into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan said, "Marry me." Florence blinked. "What? Marry me, Florence? I know it has only been a few months, but I am certain. I am more certain of this than anything I have ever been certain of in my life. I love you. I want to spend every day with you. I want to build a life with you, a real life. Marry me." Florence's mind raced. It was fast, maybe too fast, but everything in the West moved fast. Life was too uncertain, too fragile to waste time on long courtships, and she knew her own heart. She loved this man who had saved her, who had given her everything and asked for so little in return. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Nathan, I will marry you." Nathan let out a whoop of joy and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the small room. When he set her down, he was grinning like a boy. "You have made me the happiest man in Wyoming, the happiest man in the whole world." "We are both mad," Florence said, but she was smiling too. "Probably. But I would rather be mad and happy than sane and lonely." They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Unionville. Charlie and Jasper stood as witnesses, along with the general store clerk's sister who had spoken kindly of Florence. The ceremony was simple, but Florence wore her wedding dress, the one she had packed so carefully when leaving her old farm. It felt right to wear it now, starting this new chapter. Nathan wore a new suit he had purchased specially for the occasion. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife and Nathan kissed her, Florence felt tears on her cheeks. Happy tears, the kind she had not cried in so long she had forgotten what they felt like. That night in the bedroom they now shared, Nathan was tender and careful with her. "Tell me if I should stop," he said. "Tell me what you need." "I need you," Florence replied. "I need this." Making love with Nathan was different than it had been with Thomas. More passionate, more desperate in a way, as if they were both trying to pour all their feeling into physical connection. Afterward, lying in his arms with her head on his chest, Florence felt a deep sense of contentment. "No regrets?" Nathan asked softly. "None. You, not a single one." Married life suited them both. Florence threw herself into making the ranch house truly a home. She sewed new curtains, planted flowers around the porch, cooked meals that made even quiet Jasper enthusiastic. Nathan continued working the ranch but always made time for her, stolen kisses in the barn, long talks on the porch as evening fell. In September, Florence realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another month to be sure, then told Nathan over breakfast one morning. "I am with child," she said simply. Nathan's fork clattered to his plate. "You are certain as I can be without a doctor, but yes, I am certain." Nathan stood so fast his chair tipped over. He pulled Florence into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." "You are happy?" Florence asked, though his reaction made the answer clear. "Happy, Florence, I am over the moon, a baby, our baby." He pulled back to look at her, his hands cupping her face. "Are you happy? How are you feeling? Are you ill? Do you need to rest? Should we get the doctor?" Florence laughed at his sudden flurry of concern. "I am fine. A little tired, but fine. And yes, I am happy. I am so happy, Nathan." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall and into winter. Nathan treated Florence like she was made of glass, constantly worrying about her, trying to keep her from working too hard. She put up with it for a while, then finally told him she would scream if he asked her one more time if she needed to sit down. "I am growing a baby, not dying of consumption," she said with exasperation. "I can still gather eggs and make dinner." "I just want you to be safe," Nathan protested. "I know, and I love you for it, but you need to trust me to know my own limits." He did try to back off a bit after that, though Florence often caught him watching her with concern in his eyes. Winter set in hard that year, but the ranch was well prepared. They had plenty of food stored, plenty of firewood. The cattle had good shelter, and Charlie and Jasper kept close watch on them. Nathan and Florence spent long evenings by the fire, his hand on her growing belly, feeling their child move. "What should we name him?" Nathan asked one night in January. "Or her. What should we name our baby?" Florence thought about it. "If it is a boy, I would like to name him after my father. His name was Henry. Henry Quincy, I like that. And if it is a girl, I always loved the name Sarah, but you should choose too." "Sarah is beautiful, Sarah Quincy." Nathan pressed a kiss to her temple. "Either way, our child will be loved beyond measure." The baby came in March, just as the snow was beginning to melt and the first signs of spring appeared. Florence's labor started in the early morning hours. Nathan rode hard to fetch Doc Peterson while Charlie's sister, Mary, came to stay with Florence. The labor was long and difficult, lasting well into the next day. Florence screamed and cried and cursed Nathan's name more than once. But when she finally heard the baby's first cry, all the pain faded into insignificance. "It is a boy," Doc Peterson announced, placing the squalling infant on Florence's chest. "A healthy boy." Florence looked down at her son, this tiny perfect creature with a shock of dark hair like his father's. Nathan stood beside the bed, tears streaming down his face, looking at his wife and child with an expression of pure wonder. "Hello, Henry," Florence whispered. "Welcome to the world, little one." Nathan carefully sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping his arms around both of them. "He is perfect." "You are perfect. Thank you, Florence. Thank you for this." "I think we are both responsible for this particular miracle," Florence said with a tired smile. "Henry proved to be a healthy baby with a good appetite and strong lungs." Nathan was a devoted father, taking every opportunity to hold his son, walking the floor with him at night when he fussed, changing soiled diapers without complaint. Florence watched her husband with their child and fell even more deeply in love with him. "You are a natural father," she told him one evening as he rocked Henry to sleep. "I always wanted children," Nathan admitted. "When I lost the ranch in Kansas, I thought I might have lost that chance. Thought I would spend my life alone, no family, no one to pass anything on to. Now look at me. A beautiful wife, a healthy son, a ranch that is thriving. I am blessed beyond what I ever deserved." "We both are," Florence said. As Henry grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Nathan expanded the cattle operation, added more horses. Florence maintained an extensive garden and even started keeping bees for honey. They hired an additional hand to help Charlie and Jasper, a young man named Tom who was good with animals and willing to work hard. Florence found herself thinking often about the day Nathan had ridden up to her failing farm with his improbable offer. What if she had refused? What if fear had kept her from taking that chance? She would have missed all of this. The love, the family, the life they had built together. On a warm evening in late spring, when Henry was 2 years old, Florence and Nathan sat on the porch watching their son play with one of the barn cats. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, and a soft breeze carried the scent of new grass. "You ever regret it?" Florence asked. "Giving me your ranch?" Nathan looked at her in surprise. "Regret it? Florence, giving you this ranch was the smartest thing I ever did. It was never really mine until you made it ours. This place did not become a home until you walked through that door. You gambled everything on a stranger." "I gambled on hope, and hope paid off better than I ever dreamed possible." He took her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I loved you powerfully even then. Every day with you is a gift." Florence leaned her head on his shoulder, watching Henry chase the cat around the yard, his laughter bright in the evening air. "I love you too, more than I can ever properly express. You express it every day just by being here, by choosing to build this life with me." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower. Charlie and Jasper walked past on their way to the bunkhouse, calling out good night. Tom led the horses into the barn for the night. Henry abandoned the cat and ran to his parents, demanding to be picked up. Nathan scooped him up, settling him on his lap. "Story," Henry demanded. "Tell story." "What story do you want to hear, little man?" Nathan asked. "Tell about Mama coming here. Tell how Mama comed here and you got married." Nathan and Florence exchanged smiles. It had become Henry's favorite story, the tale of how his parents met. Nathan had turned it into something of a fairy tale for the boy, emphasizing the romance and downplaying the desperation that had driven Florence to accept his offer. "Once upon a time," Nathan began, "there was a brave and beautiful woman who had lost everything. She was standing all alone, not knowing where to go or what to do. And a cowboy who had been very lonely for a very long time saw her and thought, 'That is the woman I want to spend my life with.' So he rode up to her and said, 'I have a ranch and I would like you to have it. All I ask is your company.' And Mama said yes." Henry chimed in, knowing the story by heart. She did say yes, and the cowboy was so happy because he knew his life was about to become wonderful, and he was right. The woman came to his ranch and made it a home, and they fell in love and got married and had the best little boy in the whole world. "Me," Henry said, pointing to himself. "You," Nathan confirmed, tickling his son until he giggled uncontrollably. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Florence felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her life had taken a turn she never could have predicted, but it had led her here, to this moment with this family. A year later, Florence gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah as they had discussed. This labor was easier than Henry's had been, and within hours of Sarah's birth, Florence was sitting up in bed, looking more tired than traumatized. Nathan held his daughter with the same careful awe he had shown with Henry. "She looks like you," he told Florence. "She is going to be beautiful." "She is already beautiful," Florence said. "They both are." Henry was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. Under close supervision, Florence let him hold Sarah, let him help fetch clean cloths and warm water. He was a careful big brother, already protective of the tiny infant. The ranch continued to thrive. Word had spread about Nathan's quality horses, and he started getting buyers from as far away as Colorado. The cattle operation remained strong. They added onto the house, building 2 more bedrooms for the growing family and a larger kitchen for Florence. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Nathan presented Florence with a document. She opened it confused, then felt her breath catch as she realized what she was looking at. "The deed," she said, "with both our names on it." "I had it changed," Nathan said. "I know I told you the ranch was yours when you first came here, but the legal papers still only had my name. I fixed that. Now it is truly ours. Equal partnership, legal and binding." Florence threw her arms around him, the paper crinkling between them. "Thank you. Not just for this, but for everything. For taking a chance on me. For giving me a life I never thought I would have." "Thank you for saying yes," Nathan replied. "Thank you for trusting me when you had no reason to. Thank you for loving me and giving me a family." They stood holding each other in the middle of the kitchen. 2 people who had found each other at the right moment, who had taken a risk on love and been rewarded beyond measure. More years passed, marked by the rhythms of ranch life. Henry grew tall and strong, learning the ranch work from his father. Sarah proved to have a gift with animals, able to gentle even the most skittish horses. When Henry was 8 and Sarah was 5, Florence gave birth to twins, 2 boys they named Thomas after Florence's first husband and Michael after Nathan's father. "Our family is complete," Florence said, holding the twins while surrounded by her other children. "It is perfect," Nathan agreed. "Absolutely perfect." Charlie eventually married Mary, the general store clerk's sister, and they built a house on the edge of the ranch property. Jasper took over managing much of the cattle operation, proving to have a head for the business side of things. Tom saved his money and eventually bought his own small place north of Nathan's ranch. But they all remained close, a network of friends and neighbors who supported each other. When Henry was 15, he told his parents he wanted to start training horses like his father did. Nathan spent the next 2 years teaching his son everything he knew. By the time Henry was 17, he could handle even the wildest broncs, turning them into reliable ranch horses. Sarah, at 12, had developed her mother's practicality along with her way with animals. She helped Florence with the younger boys, managed the garden, and still found time to spend hours working with the horses. The twins, rambunctious and energetic at 7 years old, kept everyone on their toes but brought constant laughter to the household. On a summer evening when Henry was 18, and talking about maybe courting the daughter of a rancher 3 valleys over, Florence and Nathan took a rare moment alone, walking out to the hill where Nathan had first kissed her all those years ago. "Can you believe it has been 16 years since I showed up at your failing farm with that crazy offer?" Nathan asked. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." Florence looked out over the land that had become so familiar. "Do you remember what I said when you first made your proposal? I said it was the maddest thing I had ever heard." "And it was," Nathan agreed. "But sometimes the mad things are the right things. I was so scared, not just of accepting your offer, but of everything. I had lost so much. I did not think I could survive another loss." Nathan pulled her close. "But you did more than survive. You thrived. We thrived. Because you gave me a chance. Because you saw something in me worth taking a risk on. I saw strength and determination. I saw a woman who refused to give up. And I saw the possibility of love, even if I did not dare to hope too much at first." Nathan tilted her face up to his. But the reality exceeded anything I could have imagined. You have made my life worth living, Florence. You and our children, this ranch, this family we have built. It is everything. Florence kissed him, a kiss that held 16 years of love and partnership. And you gave me hope when I had none left. You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. You gave me love when I thought that part of my life was over. We saved each other, Nathan. They stood on the hill as the sun set. Two people who had found each other in desperate circumstances and built something lasting and true. Behind them, the house glowed with lamplight, filled with the voices of their children. The land stretched out in all directions, productive and beautiful. The future spread before them, full of promise. "What do you think happens next?" Florence asked. "Henry will marry eventually, start his own family. Sarah too, though she is still young. The twins will grow up. Where does that leave us?" "Right here," Nathan said firmly. "Right here together, watching our family grow, maybe welcoming grandchildren someday. Growing old together on this land we have built together. That is what happens next." "That sounds perfect." "It does not it?" They walked back to the house hand in hand, the way they had walked together through 16 years of joy and challenge. Always side by side, always partners. In the years that followed, Nathan's prediction proved accurate. Henry did marry the rancher's daughter, a smart young woman named Elizabeth who fit seamlessly into the family. They built a house on the eastern section of the property and started raising horses in partnership with Nathan. Within 2 years, they gave Nathan and Florence their first grandchild, a boy they named Nathan after his grandfather. Sarah waited until she was 20 to marry, choosing a quiet veterinarian who had moved to Unionville from back east. They settled in town where he could practice, but Sarah remained deeply involved in the ranch, coming out several times a week to work with the horses she loved. The twins grew into young men with their father's work ethic and their mother's practical nature. Thomas chose to focus on cattle ranching, while Michael discovered a talent for carpentry and started building furniture that sold well in Unionville and beyond. Through it all, Nathan and Florence remained the heart of the family. They were the ones everyone came to for advice, for comfort, for celebration. They were the anchor that held everything together. On a cool October evening, when they had been married for 28 years, Florence developed a persistent cough. At first, she dismissed it as nothing serious, but when it lingered for weeks, Nathan insisted on bringing the doctor out. Doc Peterson, now much older but still practicing, examined her thoroughly. His expression was grave when he finished. "It is lung fever," he said. "Not the worst case I have seen, but it needs attention. Complete rest, keep warm, lots of fluids." Florence wanted to protest that she had too much to do to rest, but Nathan cut her off. "She will rest. I will make sure of it." For 2 weeks, Florence stayed in bed while Nathan fussed over her constantly. He brought her soup, tea, anything she might want. He read to her in the evenings. He held her hand and told her stories of their life together. Slowly, under his devoted care, Florence recovered. The cough faded, her strength returned, but the scare reminded them both that they were not young anymore. Nathan was 55 now, Florence was 50. "We have had a good life," Florence said one evening as she convalesced, still weak but improving. "We are still having a good life," Nathan corrected. "This is not the end. We have years ahead of us yet." "Promise me something," Florence said seriously. "Promise me that if anything happens to me, you will not be alone. You will let the children take care of you. You will keep living, really living, not just existing." "Florence, do not talk like that. Promise me, Nathan." He took her hand, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I promise. But only if you promise me the same thing." "I promise." They both recovered from the scare, determined to make the most of whatever time they had left. They took more walks, spent more time with their grandchildren, who now numbered 5. They sat on the porch in the evenings and remembered the early days, the struggles and triumphs that had built their life together. Years continued to pass with the steady rhythm of seasons. More grandchildren arrived. The ranch operations expanded and evolved as Henry and Thomas took over more responsibility. Nathan and Florence stepped back from the day-to-day work, content to advise and support rather than lead. On a spring morning 33 years after Florence had first arrived at the ranch, she woke to find Nathan still asleep beside her. She lay quietly, watching him in the early light, this man who had saved her, who had loved her, who had given her a life beyond anything she could have imagined. His hair was white now, his face deeply lined, but she still saw the young cowboy who had made that impossible offer. She still felt the same flutter in her chest when he smiled at her. Some things did not change, even with time. Nathan's eyes opened, and he smiled when he saw her watching him. "Good morning, beautiful. Good morning, handsome. What are you thinking about so seriously?" he asked, reaching to tuck a strand of silver hair behind her ear. "I am thinking about how lucky I am, how lucky we are. I am the lucky one. You took a chance on a stranger with a crazy offer. You took a chance on a widow with nothing but 2 bags of belongings and a mountain of grief." Nathan pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, their bodies fitting together the way they had for over 3 decades. "We took a chance on each other. And it paid off better than either of us had any right to expect." "Do you think we get more time?" Florence asked quietly. "Real time, I mean. Years together. I hope so. But even if we only get today, it has been worth it, all of it. Every single moment." Florence felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not sad tears. They were tears of gratitude, of love, of contentment so deep it almost hurt. "I love you, Nathan Quincy. I have loved you for 33 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. And I love you, Florence Quincy. You are the best decision I ever made." They rose eventually, facing another day together. Henry and Elizabeth stopped by with the grandchildren. Sarah arrived with her husband and their 2 children, the house filled with noise and laughter and life. Nathan and Florence sat at the head of the table during lunch, surrounded by the family they had created, the legacy of that crazy gamble made so long ago. That evening, after everyone had left and the house had returned to peaceful quiet, Nathan and Florence walked out to their hill one more time. They were slower now, their steps not as sure as they once had been, but they made it to the top. The sunset was spectacular, painting the Wyoming sky in shades of gold and crimson. The land spread out before them, the ranch that had been Nathan's gift, that had become their shared home, that now housed their children and grandchildren. "It was worth it," Florence said. "All of it. The fear, the risk, the uncertainty. It was all worth it." "I knew it would be," Nathan said. "From the moment you said yes, I knew everything would be worth it, liar." "You were terrified I would say no," Nathan laughed. "That is true, I was absolutely terrified, but I said yes." "You said yes. Best word I ever heard." They stood together as the sun sank lower. 2 people who had found each other at exactly the right moment, who had built something lasting and true. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the sound of cattle lowing in the distance, horses nickering in the corrals, the everyday symphony of ranch life. "Should we head back?" Florence asked as the first stars appeared. "In a minute. Let me hold you a little longer." Nathan wrapped his arms around his wife, and Florence leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and completely at peace. Below them, lights began to glow in the windows of the house, warm and welcoming. Their home. Their life. Whatever time remained to them, whether it was years or months or days, they would face it together. Just as they had faced everything else, side by side, partners in all things. The cowboy and the widow who had taken a chance on each other and found love in the harsh beauty of the Wyoming frontier. The story that had started with loss and desperation had transformed into one of joy and abundance. The widow who had lost her farm had gained so much more than land. She had gained love, family, purpose, a life rich with meaning. And the lonely cowboy who had offered everything on a hope had received everything he had ever wanted in return. As they finally turned to walk back down the hill toward home, hand in hand as they had walked for 33 years, neither had any regrets. They had lived fully, loved completely, and built something that would endure long after they were gone. Their children would carry on the ranch, teach their own children the values of hard work and kindness and taking chances on love. The legacy would continue, rooted in that single moment when Nathan had ridden up to a desperate widow and made an offer that changed both their lives forever. The house welcomed them back with warmth and light. They prepared for bed with the easy familiarity of decades together. They climbed under the wedding ring quilt that had covered their bed since the beginning, and Nathan pulled Florence close. "Thank you," he whispered into the darkness. "For what? For saying yes. For trusting me. For building this life with me, for every single day." Florence kissed him softly. "Thank you for asking. Thank you for seeing me when I thought I was invisible. Thank you for giving me hope when I had none. We saved each other. Yes, we did." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the way they had fallen asleep thousands of times before, and would continue to fall asleep for whatever time remained. Outside, the Wyoming night stretched vast, and star-filled over the land they had made their own. The ranch slept peacefully, secure and thriving. And in the master bedroom of the white farmhouse, two people who had found love in the most unlikely circumstances rested easy, their hearts full, their lives complete, their love story one for the ages.